The Department of Public Health and Human Services is pleased to bring you Aging Horizons. Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, fraud, legal issues, veterans benefits, and caregiving. Aging Horizons is a program dedicated to inform and prepare Montanans on these timely issues, making a difference to you and your loved ones. Here now is today's program host.
Hello everyone. Today on Aging Horizons we're going to be talking about diabetes and specifically just what you need to know, what are some signs, what's some great ways to do some prevention, and just be a healthier you. It doesn't have to be an awful thing. It can just be something easy to live with if you have the information. So join us.
I think the most pleasant surprise when we turned 65 and signed up for Medicare Part B was finding out about our Welcome to Medicare preventive visit.
It was free, and it gave us the opportunity to visit with our doctors and establish a plan for our health going forward.
They reviewed our medical history, measured our height, weight, blood pressure, and counseled us on other risk factors.
To learn more about Medicare's free or low-cost preventive and wellness benefits, call your local SHIP counselor at 800-551-3191. I mentioned it's free, right?
Twice.
If the Aging Network in Montana was a restaurant, the sign out front would say, over 50 million meals served over the last 30 years. Since adequate nutrition is critical to health and quality of life, nutrition services are an important factor in keeping older Montanans healthy, independent, and living in their community and home. To find out more about senior nutrition programs in your area, call 1-800-551-3191.
Final call from like 566.
Hello, gentlemen. May I see your Montana Real IDs?
IDs? Why, I'm Captain Meriwether Lewis.
And I'm Captain William Clark.
Hang on, I see more than one William Clark.
It's the real me, I promise.
Discover more at mtrealid.gov. Available now.
Montana Real ID. It's the real me.
And me.
Elder abuse is a growing problem, and it's happening right here in our Montana communities. At least 1 in 10 older adults are victims of physical or emotional abuse, financial exploitation, or neglect. To get help or report elder abuse, call your local area agency on aging or Adult Protective Services at 1-844-277-9300.
Hi folks, and welcome to Aging Horizons, brought to you by the Department of Public Health and Human Services. I'm your host, Kimmy Everman, and we're going to talk about diabetes today. Don't run away, it's not terrible. There's a lot of things that you can learn, and you can just move on with your life if you do have this, or even ways to possibly stave it off, prevent it, whatever. We have with us Marcy Butcher today. Hi, Marcy.
Hello.
Nice that you're here.
Thank you so much for having me today.
And you are a diabetes education coordinator for the Department of Public Health.
I am.
What does all that mean?
So I'm a dietitian and a certified diabetes educator, and I work for the state health department, DPHHS, diabetes program. And the goal of my role is to increase access to diabetes education. We know that people need the information and education and the skills and the tools to positively manage their diabetes. And so I work with diabetes educators all over the state in education programs, trying to increase the number of programs so that people have easier access to diabetes education.
Now I know that off screen we've talked a lot about that, that diabetes educator. There's someone that might be local to you? Is that what you're talking about?
Absolutely. We've really come a long way in Montana to increase access to diabetes education. There's so many more education programs in communities, even in a lot of rural communities. So really what we're trying to do is encourage people to ask their provider about seeing a diabetes educator.
Their medical provider.
Yep, their medical provider who's taking care of their diabetes, to give them a referral to diabetes education. Now whether there's somebody in their community or maybe be able to reach out via telehealth, there's some opportunities for education, for sure.
And obviously you are very excited about this, and and that's so great, because as I was telling you, I have a family that's just full of diabetes, and so every bit of information I can get makes me feel better and helps me know that I can keep it at bay for a little while, hopefully.
Yes.
So I'm glad you're there, but are you having good success getting out there and talking to people?
You know, the educators in Montana are wonderful about promoting their programs. I think, however, it is a vastly underutilized service.
Sure,
Nationally,
sure,
only
sure.
about 7% of people with diabetes actually see a diabetes educator when they're diagnosed.
And let's just be real clear with our audience, okay? These are not prison guards. They're not going to tell you to put a lock on your refrigerator.
So
They're not going to tell you to never eat a chocolate bar again, are they? What are they going to do?
Oh my gosh, there's so many misconceptions about going to a
clear that
diabetes.
up.
Let's get to it.
Yeah.
You know, it used to be sort of like you failed when you got sent to the diabetes educator. Okay, I'm going to send you to the diabetes educator.
You bad boy or girl, yeah.
Yeah, and it's so not that way. Actually, diabetes education is such an empowering thing. We know that, you know, 99.9% of diabetes care is self-management.
Right.
You know, you're not hanging out with the doctor in your hip pocket, right? So we need the skills and tools to do that every day. So it means that they are going to help you come up with strategies and plans and help you with the technology, the meters, the, you know, apps on your phone or whatever that can help you self-manage. It's really not just education, it's specialty care. And real diabetes care management.
And so these are going to be people that have got great training and they have got no judgment about your life or what you eat every day or who you are or how much you weigh or whatever. There's no judgment. All they want to do is help you through something that once you sort of, now I want to use the right language, manage, okay, because we're going to talk more about the language.
Absolutely.
Once you learn to manage well that particular part of your life, that's all it has to be, is a tiny part of your life. It doesn't have to be a shadow over everything. And I think that it's really important that we do give a shout out to those educators because they, you know, it's hard to see a real good program underutilized. Especially when you have such good people running them. Now, one other thing I wanted to ask you about, and I think we'll talk more about this through the show, but hey, you know what? Diabetes supplies and insulin are getting pretty darn expensive if they're not already. And I know that folks who watch our program are always looking and hoping for something that might be supportive if they need it. You can talk to that educator about what might be out there for you.
Absolutely. And really, because insurance plans are all different, and you know, it's hard to say go to this place and you'll go to this website and you'll get what you need. It's not that easy, is it, unfortunately. So the diabetes educators are really good. So the nurses, dietitians, pharmacists in those diabetes programs are super good at helping you walk through where you can get help for the least cost and get the best care that works for you. And working with your
I just know that
provider.
I have been amazed at some of my friends who have told me about some assistance they've gotten with diabetic supplies, and it just blew me away because the generosity of it was pretty wonderful, and I knew that it would help them tremendously make their ends meet. So those educators that you coordinate are pretty important people, and we want to make sure that everybody is aware that they're at least somewhere around that you can get a hold of them. And one of the websites we talked about is GoodRx. We want to make sure we mention that, and we can put the RX up on the screen for folks. But you know, folks, it does not make sense to not look into this. If you have diabetes, if you think you might, if you just want to learn to live a more healthy life, stay tuned. We have a whole lot more to tell you, and it's not going to be scary. Come on back.
Every 65 seconds, someone is affected with Alzheimer's or other dementias. Many become isolated at a time when help is most needed. If you or someone you love is affected, help is available, both for people with memory loss and their caregivers. Memory loss can feel frightening, but you are not alone. Call the free 24/7 Alzheimer's Association helpline, 800-272-3900, for guidance and support.
You mean I can get help paying my prescription drug premiums?
Let me get this straight. I could be eligible for help with my family's prescription premiums even though I own my own home?
And our assets won't be counted.
If you're a Montana resident enrolled in the Medicare prescription drug program, you could be eligible for help paying your premiums. Call or visit the Big Sky RX website today to find out, even if you think you're over income.
What do you know about that? I'm eligible.
I was outside working on some equipment, nothing too strenuous. I started sweating and feeling out of breath.
When he felt pressure in his chest and aching in his arms, I knew we had to call 911.
First responders were there before we knew it. 38 minutes later, the doctors had restored the blood flow to my heart.
Now we know dialing 911 saved his life.
Your life is on the line.
This message sponsored by Mission Lifeline Montana.
When I found out it was diabetes, my first thought was, Barb, you need help. You have to take control of this. There is help. My doctor gave me a phone number. I called and signed up with a diabetes educator. There is help. I have to put blinders on when I walk past the bakery counter. I can feel my blood sugar go up. You succeed a little at a time. If you have diabetes, help is available. You do not have to do it alone.
Ask your doctor about diabetes education or visit montana211.org.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Aging Horizons. We're here with Marcy and we're talking about diabetes today. What you can do about it, how you know you have it, and how you might be able to stave it off. Marcy, again, it's so great to have you. We're going to jump into what you and I call the nitty-gritty here, right?
You bet.
Let's talk about what this is. And first of all, I'm going to go back to the language issue that we sort of mentioned, because one of the things that we've talked about here and I researched is it's very important, the words we use, so we're not shaming and stigmatizing people and making them feel even more isolated about this. I asked you, should I call it a disease? And you said, a condition might be better.
Maybe.
And we'll see, but you know, I feel more comfortable condition, actually. And so maybe we can sort of intersperse that, but what is diabetes?
Wow. Well,
I know, huge, right?
I know. This is kind of a big open-ended thing. But honestly, I so appreciate being able to start with language, because what we say matters.
Yeah.
And we want to empower people. We want to help them live well and live strong with diabetes. And if we're using any kind of shaming and blaming words, that really does sort of decrease people's capacity to manage themselves well. But to get into what diabetes is a condition where there is high blood sugar, basically. And there are a lot of kinds of diabetes, but the ultimate sort of result of diabetes is high blood sugars. And high blood sugars damage things like the kidneys and the eyes and the heart and the nerves and all
lots
the
of major organs.
Lots of major organs. And, basically everything that's fed by blood can be affected by diabetes. Because sugar is attached to the red blood cells to be carried to the body to provide nourishment. And so when blood sugar is high, that can cause damage. And it's not just a sugar disease, it's a vessel disease. So all those little tiny vessels in the feet and the kidneys and the eyes and the heart and all these other organs really can be damaged by that high blood sugar.
Sure.
But and I did bring some things along.
If you want. I do, because I got to tell you, I really think that your visual for the blood samples are, I told you my family is full of folks with diabetes, and we'd love to see how that looks on the inside. Now, set it up. Explain what you have.
So exactly. So this is, I'm not carrying around baggies of blood here. So it's kind of like spaghetti sauce. It's tomato paste and vinegar.
Okay.
But what this represents is sort of normal blood glucose levels. So you'll notice it's supposed to sort of look like nice flowy blood that's doing its job well. Blood sugar level is normal, right? Okay.
Okay.
So when blood sugar levels are...
And tell us what, because you know, again, I'm going to use me. I told you, boy, I sweat that A1C test every year because I want to do well.
Yes.
So the A1C is the blood test.
Yes.
Okay. And so what's a good range for that?
Right. So if you have diabetes, less than 7 is really a goal, and the more normal, even less than that, 6, etc., is the better.
Okay.
But if you have diabetes, less than 7 is a really good level. But again, a little lower the better.
Okay.
And it's done by percentages, so less than 7%.
Okay.
And really what that is, and I brought this little example of a stuffed red blood cell, but the more, and these are glucose molecules or sugar molecules, but the more sugar that's attached to the red blood cell, the higher the A1C.
I see. Okay.
Okay.
That makes sense. All right, let's see the second one.
All right.
I'm getting scared.
So here we again we've got normal good blood sugar levels.
Okay.
The next one is a higher blood glucose level. And so that sugar again attaches to the red blood cells.
Yeah.
And so the more glucose sticks to the red blood cells, the stickier it becomes.
Oh my.
And this is just a demonstration.
Right.
But it gives people an idea that things are maybe not.
We're not trying to scare anyone.
Quite working the way it should when the blood sugar levels are are high and very high. People become dehydrated, and so things get concentrated a little bit more.
Wow.
And so this is just an example of that. If you think of it being a vessel disease, you can imagine how hard the heart has to work
to get that through.
And all of those tiny little vessels that that need nourishment and need glucose to work, but not real high glucose like this. And so really it's something to be concerned about in terms of your blood sugar level. And this is just something that kind of is a visual representation of what can happen in the body.
Right.
And I think it's really good to understand that.
Yeah, I know visual is always really pretty good for me too, because it really does drive the point home. We're almost done with this segment. We have so much more to talk about, but let's just end with, this is some genetics, right?
Oh, huge part of diabetes is
that doesn't
genetics.
mean that you can't work
at
not getting it, but you may be predisposed, and if so, c'est la vie, and simply work harder, right?
Well, I tell you, there's so much that we know from the research and the diabetes prevention program that if you, exercise 150 minutes a week, which is like 30 minutes 5 times a week to work up to, and maybe lose about 5 to 7% of your body weight. So we're not talking major weight here. It might be about 11, 12 pounds.
It's not the end of the world.
It really can decrease your risk.
When we come back, we have a whole lot more to tell you. Stay with us. Thanks.
Providing long-term care for someone in need is a labor of love, but it is a labor. Time apart is healthy and necessary both for the caregiver and the person receiving care. It allows each a respite, time to relax and recharge. If you're a long-term caregiver, visit the new Lifespan Respite website. Financial assistance may be available. Respite for caregivers. It's okay to need it. It's okay to want it. It's okay to get it.
I've been shooting since I was young. It's something I've always enjoyed. I wasn't feeling like myself, but my friend noticed. He asked if he could hold onto my guns temporarily. At first, I was a little shocked, but then I agreed. I think he saved my life that day.
This is Bill. He just received his new Medicare card and is following some simple rules to protect himself from fraud. He knows to never give out his Medicare, Social Security, or bank number over the phone. And this is Nancy. She knows that to detect any problems, she always reads her Medicare summary notice or Medicare Advantage EOB to make sure the billing is correct. Both Bill and Nancy know that anything suspicious can be reported to Montana SMP at 1-800-551-3191.
I'm Attorney General Tim Fox. Nowadays, all of you have to worry about cybersecurity. Something as simple as visiting pirate websites can put your computer at risk. Hackers use pirate websites to infect your computer and steal your ID and financial information, or even take over your computer camera without you knowing it. Don't let hackers into your house. Be careful with the websites you visit and warn your kids on how to stay safe online. To learn more, visit my website.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Aging Horizons. We're here with Marcy Butcher. Marcy, let's start with signs and symptoms. You know, you may not be like me and have bunches of people in your family with diabetes. What should you be looking for?
So, good question. Actually, they call diabetes the silent disease or silent condition because you can have diabetes for a long time without really knowing it because the conditions can be, or the signs and symptoms can be so subtle. But if you notice being extremely thirsty, going to the bathroom a lot, urinating a lot, being super tired, wounds that won't heal, blurry vision. Sometimes the first people find it is at the eye doctor because they think their vision has changed. Those are some of the signs and symptoms to be aware of.
Okay. Yeah. And so let's say you have a few of those. What should you do?
Boy, get to your provider and get a blood test. Sometimes that's the only way to find out that you have diabetes. So again, an annual checkup with your provider is so important because of the sort of subtle things that you may not notice and still have diabetes going on. So blood test from your provider, and then typically then if you are diagnosed with diabetes, then they'll refer you to a diabetes educator.
One of those great people that we want folks to connect with. And you know, just before we leave the topic, I would like to have you just tell us a few things. If you leave it untreated, what might you have in store for yourself?
So many of the things that complications that come along with diabetes can be prevented, but really those target organs, the small little vessels. So it's one of the leading causes of blindness, lower leg amputations, heart attacks and strokes are huge. But then also some nerve damage and kidney disease as well. So absolutely.
So, you know, I mean, we're not trying to be really pessimistic here, but you don't want to let it go.
Right.
Don't be afraid, because our next message is there's no stigma to this at all. It's just another condition that a person has to deal with. And the educators will help you find out about all these different things. The doc will help you get on the right medications, etc. But what if you don't have, okay, now we've talked about pre-diabetes. What's that?
So pre-diabetes is blood sugars are slightly elevated, but not to the diagnostic criteria of diabetes.
Okay.
However, you know, people talk about just being borderline or just a little bit of sugar, and it makes it sound like it's not something to be concerned about. And really that cardiovascular damage is happening at those low, slightly elevated blood sugar levels. So yes, if you have a family history, you know, boy, get into your doctor if you have the risk factors. Absolutely good to get in and get screened. Or there's a free online test at diabetes.org.
There you go.
So the American Diabetes Association has a free risk test that you can just go on. It's a few questions. You can find out your risk right there.
You know, and there's so many simple things. You know, eat well.
Yes.
Get some exercise. Get plenty of sleep.
Yes.
Get plenty of hydration. And these are all things that will not only make you a stronger person, but will help you stave off diabetes.
Absolutely. those positive things that you can do, those positive steps, whether it's pre-diabetes or diabetes, that those positive lifestyle things are so very powerful, and small steps add up to big rewards.
You know, and I would expect that your educators like to work with small steps for folks, because it's just, you know, human nature is to fight change. We all would do that. It's not just a person just finding out that they have diabetes. And so let's once again give a shout out to those educators, and again remind people they're not judgmental. They're not going to order you to do something, nor are they going to shame you and blame you. And they could end up being a great resource.
Absolutely.
Right?
And so many people feel that they are understanding and give them hope for living well with their condition, living well with diabetes. They can live strong, live well with diabetes.
Because it's a growing concern, isn't it?
It is.
I know that I read a lot of articles and stuff. I certainly don't know all the numbers, but it sure seems like our society is becoming more and more diabetic.
Yes.
As we speak.
Absolutely. If you're interested in numbers, just one that is pretty startling and can really be impactful not only to individuals and families, but also communities in our states and as a country as a whole, is that right now the condition, diabetes is about over 30 million Americans. About 1 in 10 or 11 people have diabetes. By the year 2050, which is not that far away, if trends continue, it's 1 in 3. So huge. If we don't change the trajectory of things, big trouble.
And we talked about some of the health consequences of letting this go. Not only is that a consequence to the person, it's a consequence to the health insurance.
Absolutely.
Structure for all of those helping programs that are out there. It's a trickle-down effect that it's going to overwhelm everything. And I've learned a lot, and I thought I knew a lot, Marcy.
You do.
Well,
but we can all learn more.
And it's important, very important, that we pay attention to this. I know that we're all busy, and we all have a zillion other things that we're paying attention to, but this is the sort of thing. It's an investment in your own body.
It is.
Right.
Absolutely.
And it's an investment in your family. If you're a younger person, that you're not going to, have a condition that may be difficult for your family, and 2, you're going to be a role model.
Absolutely.
Marcy, it's been great having you here, and you know what? We're already planning to have you back.
I'd love to.
You have lots of stuff more to give us. So
thank you.
We'll have you back. And folks, it's been a great, fun show. Hope you liked it, and join us next time for Aging Horizons.
Special thanks to the Department of Public Health and Human Services for their continued support. Hosts on Aging Horizons are program specialists at the Montana Office on Aging. Production facilities provided by Video Express Productions. For more information about Aging Horizons, call the Department of Public Health and Human Services toll-free at 800-332-2272.